welcome. My name is Nick, and right on that side is
Emery?
and together we are just two camera guys. On the show today, we're going to be going into the mailbag, going over some questions, hitting up the lens market, new and used, seeing the. Emery actually has firsthand knowledge of this, don't you? Buying some used lenses lately.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of this recently.
We're going to talk about the touch-up law that's just passed in Norway recently, and we're going to kind of discuss the future of Instagram that has Emery a little worried, but no need to be worried. So our question that just came in, it's actually just a text that I got, but I think it works as a good question here.
Mailbag, a text, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah. So it says, hey, do you only use Canon lenses? I'm thinking of a 24 to 72.8L for my trip at the end of the year, but the Sigma version is, of course, half the price. Just wondering if you've ever used third-party lenses. That's a literal text that I just got before the show. So,
wow, what is the answer for you, Nick?
I in my camera bag are only Canon lenses, all of them, with the red stripe. But I don't know, maybe that's just me being a snob.
No, so from that perspective too, so for the last year, I've said this over and over, I've been using one lens. One lens is a 24 millimeter Rokinon f1.4, I think. I can't remember. It might be 1.2. It's actually the lens that is on the camera right now. That's what I'm shooting on. And with the crop, it kind of looks more like a 50 millimeter.
I got the Canon 16 to 35 version 2. I think they've got the version 3 out now, which is a little better. But
yeah. But I mean, am I sharp? Does it look okay?
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, I got some bokeh because the f-stop and stuff. It's a good lens, especially for the cost and especially for my use. The other thing about that lens is it's fully manual. If I'm there's no autofocus option, there's no anything, it's manual. So I'm setting it, I'm doing it, which works great for my photography stuff, right? So a little bit of that question, I think, goes into what they're going to actually use it for.
Yeah. So my kind of theory that I've held for the last 10, 15 years, I would say, is I always buy used, well, not always, but buy used lenses, buy good lenses. And I'm pretty sure that today, because I bought any of the lenses that I bought used, I could sell for the exact same price that I bought them for. But that might be changing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that might be a little bit. And do you know what? It's not. I think right now we're in a weird time with it. So for another example, I recently just bought two lenses. So one of the lenses was a 100 millimeter f2.8 macro. So the macro lens you see everywhere. Another one was the actually 28 to 70 to 200 f2.8.
Okay, yeah, the 7200 ones, yeah.
But the RF version of it. Now, I think I got a pretty good deal on both of them. I bought the macro, I think, for $900 used, and I bought the RF for, I think it was $3,100 used. But it's not an old lens or anything, it's new. I'm going to start with the macro. Ever since I bought mine, I have seen a bunch of macros come up on use the same lens for $1,200, $1,300. They are not selling. So I think they will eventually sell for people. Someone will eventually pay that money because no, I would rather pay that than $1,800.
Is that 1800? Oh, you're talking about the RF version or the regular, the EF?
Both of them. The EF version went up in cost.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm with you. I think that EF one, back in the day, was $1,300. It was
I honestly think it was $999. I thought I paid $999 for mine because that was one of my few new lenses that I bought.
Yeah, it used to be a super cheap lens, and
it was the deal of the year, that lens.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure what happened to it. I'm going on Don's photo right now to actually look it
Okay.
up. Um,
But yeah, so with the used market, my concern is that these EF lenses that I've been saying will stay steady value for years and years and years, won't stay at a steady value. That they're going to start going down in value over time.
I believe that in like solely. I've told you that before too. Is like
Yeah.
that's half the reason I sold my stuff too. It was like get it while the value's good. Um, so I also sold a 17 to 40 f4, a 70 to 200
Yeah.
f4 that I
Yeah. The
had as well to make my switch over to the RF versions. But
17 to 40 f4, also known as the garbage lens.
that thing was a workhorse. I don't care what you say. That thing made me money, man. Um,
Uh,
yeah, it's not as nice as the 2.8, but that's okay. It was cheaper. It was less weight. Those sort of things actually they make a difference. And when you're running gun and you don't have to be perfect all the time, it's okay. Um,
mm-hmm.
Going back to the macro real quickly, so it's 16.99 on
What? The
Don's.
EF.
That's the EF. The RF is 18.49. Um,
Although, you know what I'm not taking into account? Inflation. The fact that the dollars that I used to spend on my lens 10 years ago, it would it would be more. So it just because if I bought it for $500 and I sell it for $500, I'm not breaking even.
Yeah. But I think like $900 for that lens is probably a more reasonable number, like what I paid for it, which is going to be more what the lens is actually worth. And I think eventually it's actually, I say eventually, I think like in the next couple of years, that's going to be like its mainstay price, right?
Yeah.
Um, just because that's roughly half the amount of the RF version. The other thing too, I will say, um, using the EF adapters and the RF lenses, the RF lenses work a lot nicer on the RF cameras. Like everything about them is just quicker.
Mm-hmm.
They feel a little bit nicer in the hand. Most of them, for the most part, again, I'll use that 70 to 200 as an example, that it's like a pound lighter than the EF
Yeah.
version.
So if I was going back to that question and answering it, I would suggest to that person to probably stick with their, is it the 24 to 70? Yeah, the 24 to 70 2.8, but buy a used version of it. See if you can find that. If you can find a good deal on a used version of that after your trip, worst case scenario, you'll be able to sell it for a very similar price.
Yeah, even if you take like a $200 hit on it, that's not bad.
Yeah. And it's such a nice lens that you'll probably just keep it.
Yeah, it's only downside again too. Looking at the RF stuff is for travel. Like that RF 70 to 200 is also the size of your 16 to 35.
Yeah.
So when you pack that in your bag, that just makes it easier.
And it's so sharp, but so this is the thing about those crazy sharp lenses and RF is we haven't I've trouble seeing the sharpness on the internet.
Right. Yeah, even the original question talking about Sigma's a great brand. 90% of the world is not going to notice the difference. And the only time you do is when you're blowing up something like really large, or, it'll be like the one instance. So this 24, again, this Rokinon has some coma issues on it, which
Mm-hmm.
you'll see in some of like the nighttime photography stuff. But I mean, most of the time it's when I screw it up, honestly. But most of the time it's tolerable, right? And people don't notice it.
Thumb in front of the lens again.
But if you're like
Stupid lens.
if you're like just a little bit out of focus on the stars, it just sort of
Mm.
exaggerates that coma.
So I wonder. I don't think that they were talking about the Sigma Art series because that's a. I'm gonna embarrass myself here, but that's manual focus lens, isn't it? The Art series, or is that
No, I think there are autofocus. The art
okay?
series is like Sigma's top.
Because yeah, those I've used those before on a shoot, and they were great, like unbelievable lenses actually. But I remember the price being very similar to the Canon stuff. So to me, it didn't seem like, well, what are you really getting here?
Yeah. The other thing too that I will say, just in regards to people not noticing, Garth Brooks had his concert here, what, 2 years ago or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The video crew for it was dialed in for Garth Brooks. So basically all their cameras and everything were set for Garth Brooks' show. And I think my camera might die here, but that's okay. Which meant the band that opened before them, which also used the video crew,
Mm-hmm.
the cameras weren't set for that. So they were set for like a tungsten light when they're shooting in daylight. So everything was like as blue as your shirt. But did people care? I'm sitting with people like, is this not bothering you? No one cared.
So they hold on. So they was this a crew that traveled with Garth Brooks, or did they use like a local kind of thing?
No, like the crew that travels with them. And that's what I mean. Like they have everything dialed in. It's all the same settings. They just roll with it. But it
So
wasn't.
they didn't roll their white balance
Nope,
for the pre-band.
didn't even fix their white balance. And like I said, not a person cared. I was the only one complaining about it. Like, what is going on?
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, Garth Brooks stuff looked great.
When once Garth walked, so yeah, I don't know that there's a certain something that does make sense to that.
Mm.
Have you? It's like when you hear the warm up comedian come on for a comedian. Have you ever heard the warm up comedian for the comedian?
Yeah.
Where they're like fun but not funny, and then the other guy sounds really funny when they get on.
Yeah. I like to think of that as our show, Nick.
Fun but not funny.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Here's the other paradox for me. Moving forward, what kind of lenses am I going to buy? They're going to be
Mm-hmm.
Canon lenses. And again, it just the RF system right now, how everything's working, it just everything about it is better. The lenses are better. Like the RF version lenses of the same equal EF version are just
Yeah.
better
But
lenses.
then what would you say? Because I get this a lot, and I never really know what to say other than I don't know. I do it. Well, I hate buying a used lens. I don't know where it's been.
I think those people are silly. It's easy to go figure that part out. So when I bought my 70 to 200, I showed up at the guy's place. I hooked it on to my camera. I
Mm-hmm.
adjusted things, made sure everything, all the sort of functions that should function worked. It's not
Yeah.
very hard. There's basically like three of them.
Yeah.
And if they work, you take a photo, it's sharp and the autofocus is switching good when you're going your what what are you concerned about?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess the local sale might be the way to go because I bought stuff off eBay and it's always worked out really well.
Yeah.
But
Or
yeah, the
like
local used lens might be the best
I, I
way to
would
go.
I would trust something like KEH as well. I've actually talked to those guys about some stuff because dealing with some film camera stuff. And yeah, like basically their worst options are still probably pretty good options.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah. Buy a used lens.
yeah,
It doesn't have to be the Canon if you're going with the 24 to 70, but if it's used, why not?
yeah, really look at your budget. It's what you can afford. Um, the differences are so minor, no one is going to care but you. So go with what makes you happy as long as you can afford it.
Yeah. But although oddly enough, so the Canon one, the weather seal, you're a little more safe to take it out in different inclement weather. Although at the same time, because you paid more money for it, you might be more hesitant to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the
that's
Rokinon
hard to
has
say.
has no weather seal on it, right? So I got to kind of watch that when I'm out. That's why I've got a rain cover.
Oh, you got a rain cover.
Yep.
Nice, nice, nice. So I think that answered the question. Good enough.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's always confusing, and people don't know what to do. And I think they're more or less looking for like validation of what they want to do.
And you know what? There is no real wrong answer. Like, yeah, if you want to go Sigma, that's fine. And it just depends how deep into it. Because so I know a guy that when he was, so he's like an amateur photographer. And when he got into photography and we were going out on some shoots together and stuff, he had a bunch of Sigma gear. And so when he was buying all his gear, it was Sigma gear. But then as he would throw on my lenses, And that fraction of a difference when he got back to the computer of seeing the different pictures and the way the video turned out, um, he sold off all that stuff and went all Canon with it. But
Yeah.
that, I don't think that means you have to. It's just there is a little difference when you're paying attention to it.
And when you get into it, you start to enjoy that stuff, right? Like I've talked to you about buying the Fujifilm GFX 100S, and I get excited about the megapixels jumping from, I think it was 21 on my 5D to the OSR with 32. It was magical. Like I couldn't believe
Yeah,
how much more I could see, right? And to go to say 100 megapixels, it boggles my mind. Like it excites me. But do I need to go to that? No. The answer is no.
yeah. No, you don't.
Do I
But
want to though? The answer is yes.
yeah, I'm not gonna sell all my lenses anytime soon, though. I'm not gonna switch to RF just yet. I'm gonna stick with it and see what happens.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Again, the budget thing comes into issue, and that's where you really need to pay attention to that.
Because yeah, it would cost me. So it cost you. I'm gonna say roughly what, $1,500 a lens to upgrade.
Yeah.
$1,000.
Right. And my other thing too is my other lenses were f4s, right? So they're cheaper lenses. So I'm even upgrading to like the better lenses or faster lenses
Yeah,
as well. So like my cost was going to be there regardless.
because yeah, it would probably cost me 1,000 to 1,500 a lens. So if it cost me 1,500 a lens, times that by five, so then you're looking at $7,500. Hold on, did I do that math right? Um,
I didn't go to math school.
3, 6, yeah, $7,500 to upgrade five lenses. I don't know.
Yeah. Might even be more, right? Like I feel like 10 grand's probably a better estimate just with how things are
Yeah,
going.
and that's not even taking the camera into consideration. That's just the lenses.
Yeah.
So then I'd have to think, well, I'd probably maybe go down to two lenses, which would be fine. But yeah, it's a tricky one.
It is. But again, though, it's one of those things, just, work on that budget, work on what you want, and slowly get there, I think is sort of the best approach. And then go from
Yeah,
there. There's no right or wrong answer.
yeah. So yeah, this guy bought the guy that asked the question, um, the original 5D Mark One, the kind that didn't do video. Remember that?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what he's still using or not. I'd be interested. I should ask him.
Yeah. You know, to throw another wrench into the pile, but if he is considering going to the RF stuff eventually, maybe that's something to consider as well, right?
Yeah,
But again, he shouldn't be afraid of used. Really, what it should be is like, what can he do with his budget?
yeah, yeah. If you're gonna keep it forever, then it's a different question.
Yeah.
Too. So what's happening in Norway?
Norway is interesting, Nick. We've kind of touched on this before. We had a talk about the ethics of photography.
Yeah,
And
I've probably changed my mind. It'll contradict myself, but that's all
no,
right.
no, no. This actually matches what you said and less of what I said. But what Norway's done is they've changed their laws around influencers. So if an influencer is posting a paid advertisement and
Mm-hmm.
they essentially edit or transform their face or body, they
Yeah,
need to indicate that that's been done in the advertisement. So it's part of the body positive movement. You were pushing hard for this, and I was pushing hard for freedom of editing. I actually like this. It's kind of in the middle of what we were discussing.
okay. So do you know any of the background details on the why? Was there any indication to discussing the why in the article, or was it just what happened?
Again, it really goes back to people being body positive. So, uh, if I post a picture of my face all photoshopped essentially to make me look better than what it
Mm-hmm.
looks now, because it needs a lot of work, yeah, I can't take that and say like, oh, this makeup cream did this for me.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And
because
that's kind
then,
of what they're trying to stop, so that then people buy that cream expecting these
yeah.
like magical results, and it's just not going to happen. Or I think like weight loss might be another area where this is really like affected in. And
Mm-hmm.
again, like I said, I actually I agree with this. Like I kind of like how they handled it in a way, like just make sure it's explicitly, like I think you almost have to have it written on the image itself, like this image has been altered.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's interesting. I like it.
Yeah, so there's a couple different things that I can think of off the top of my head on in play there, but I do agree. I like it. I like the fact that you have to be upfront about what's happening, and I don't like how you have to kind of look at a photo now and go, is that photoshopped or not? But you assume it's photoshopped basically.
And that would be
Um,
my approach. I would just assume it's Photoshop.
but I don't think everybody thinks like that. So I think that the general
Right.
population would think, wow, that's how you look. That's how you're supposed to look. That's not necessarily explicitly, but over time and just seeing enough images. But if you see enough images and say, this has been photoshopped, this image has been altered, I kind of like that.
It's getting tougher and tougher though to say what's altered. Actually, for an example, another good popular culture thing that's getting some heat right now for being altered. There's an Anthony Bourdain documentary coming out,
Mm-hmm.
and they use computer and AI to have him speak some emails
Okay.
and notes he wrote just before he'd passed away. And that's one of those things, people kind of know that this is happening, but at the same time, it's like, where do we actually lie on that ethical boundary?
Yeah. Okay, so can we table that? I want to go back to that in a sec. I just want to stick
For sure.
with the editing your image for a second. So I noticed this on Zoom the other day. You can click a thing that changes your facial features. Have you seen that?
Yep.
Or it
It,
just softens your appearance.
I believe there is some talk to there. If it will, I don't think they're sure yet if it covers like filters that people use on Instagram or Snapchat.
How could it not?
I think it would as well, but I think they're still trying to work it out. The other thing too, Nick, and I might be wrong on this, but I believe I'm trying to find it here and I'm just not having luck, but I believe there was actually like some pretty severe penalties if you did not do it, like jail time and fines.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Because, yeah, so now both of us are, we only, we're fathers of daughters. So we both have a daughter and like no boys or anything. So our perspective is maybe slightly slanted towards the more towards the female perspective on this, but I can see how this could be a very positive step in the direction of just bringing attention and realizing that these images aren't real.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm going to go back to what I said as well when we originally have the talk. I am all for freedom of your craft and what you're doing. So if you want to edit yourself and do things like that, I think that's fine.
Yeah, and
But I do think like making that clear distinction to others, especially if you're selling a product, like that's where that moral line needs to be in place, and that's what Norway did.
yeah, because yeah, there's a nobody likes the man telling you what to do, but here, yeah, I can easily see it as the other side where suddenly it's the man trying to trick you. Emery's gonna edit this out. Actually, probably won't edit this out. I should be carrying the show right now. Oh well, he'll edit it out. I did not carry the show while you were gone.
That's all right. Just sort of continuing where I left off there, I think the other thing too of note is all the articles I've seen where they're talking to the Norwegian influencers as well. It's actually, it seems like it's had a pretty positive response as well, which is good to see.
Oh, that's good. Um, so that documentary, the response was it mixed or were they taking some serious heat?
it is, I'm gonna say mixed for the time being. I like if technically they're his words, like he wrote them down or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like there's maybe like some issue where his wife didn't quite approve them to do it, but they thought they did have approval to do it. And I don't know, man. And without seeing it too, it's like really tough to say. I think it's probably going to be like a very well mixed thing. It'll probably be very
Yeah.
well done. Um, but yeah, I just
And
don't
just
think people know
because
how to deal with it right now.
that's so touchy too, because she could have even just changed her mind,
Yep.
which is fair.
Yep.
Like, you know, that's a hard one to do. It's a hard one to see on screen. That'd be
Yeah.
tough.
Or like just the idea of representing someone after they pass away is what I struggle with personally. Like I this sounds kind of flaky, but if I'd passed away and say this show continues on and you just
Yeah.
had a AI robot of me voicing things and
Yeah.
doing things in my voice, like I don't know how I'd feel about that if I was I really it doesn't matter, but I don't know if that's right, right?
Yeah. Because them using his exact words is fair, but that's still tricky because would he have said it that way? Probably not.
Yeah. And I really do think it's a matter you got to see the documentary first before you sort of cast that judgment at all. And even
That's
then,
fair.
I think casting judgment is not maybe in this case not up to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I shouldn't be judging on the fact that they use AI. I don't know. It's
Yeah, I'm not gonna
such a
be.
moral conflict, right?
Yeah, I'm not gonna be outraged unless. Well, I'm not gonna be outraged either way, but unless his wife or kids or family are upset. If his wife and kids and family are happy about it, great.
Yeah.
That would be fine. But yeah, if they're upset about it, then and it's not just a thing to sell the documentary, which it could be, um,
And
then
are
yeah,
we
no, that's the problem.
here's the other thing too is I think like in the future we're going to see more and more stuff like this and actually like I have a hard time criticizing something like that when there is so much CGI done in Hollywood movies today. So it's really not those actors anyways. It's computer generations of them. They're alive instead of passed on. So I don't know where that line sits.
Yeah, that is. Hmm. Yeah, because they could technically make a movie with Brad Pitt. They've got enough footage of him without him actually being in the movie.
Actually, point in case, a movie I love, The Crow, Brandon Lee. They finished part of that movie off and CGI'd his face onto another actor and stuff like that.
That was 30 years ago.
Yeah, like they did it the hard way. They probably rotoscoped that on, and like it was again, like I love the movie. I would never judge it, but that's probably not up to me. And I as a fan am thankful they actually finished it.
Yeah, I remember at the time being like, wow, they finished this movie. That's great. But I wasn't thinking about the person or the family. I was just thinking about the movie then.
Yeah. Do you want to hear the crazier thing about that? One of my favorite shots of the entire movie is CGI'd with his face. I don't know if you remember it, but they go up the side of the building and it's storming out, so it's lightning, and he's standing in that round window, and the crow flies out past his shoulder and it zooms in onto his face. All computer.
Really?
Yeah. Well,
It's
his
crazy they did it that long ago.
all his face was computer.
It's just they zoomed right in on a computer.
Yeah, they did it well, and yeah, it's literally one of my favorite shots of the movie. And when I found out that they did it that way, I was just like, whoa.
Because yeah, that I wish I would have looked up when that movie. Well, I didn't know we were going to talk about it, but
Yeah, I think it was 1991.
91.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I said it's one of my favorite movies. I know a lot about it. Nick, we've got 10 minutes left. I think we
Okay.
got one last thing we wanted to go through. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
yeah, let's so I you might remember who, I think it was a YouTube video about this, basically going over how, making an argument that Instagram's no longer for photographers, it's
Uh,
for video.
yeah. It was the actual, like one of the guys that runs Instagram, I believe. I can't remember what
Oh,
his
was
actual
it?
role was. Yeah, he came out basically saying Instagram's now a video platform. I watched another video and I wish I could remember the guy's name. I think it was maybe like John Keeley or something like that.
Because it was somebody saying, yeah, they're basically saying I'm not doing Instagram anymore, and they're moving to a, not a different photo platform, but I think more to YouTube or something like that
Yeah,
was their
there's
argument.
there's been a lot of that. Like I said, I can't remember his name. I want to say it's John Keeley or it's something Keeley. He did a really good breakdown on it, and basically talking about how he thinks Instagram's going to be more like TikTok now and deliver more like TikTok now. And the main difference he was sort of saying is like hashtags are going to be sort of irrelevant, and they're going to deliver based off preference and using their algorithms to sort of figure out what they should deliver to who. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it was
But it
interesting.
depends. There's still, so uh, what's your preference when you would go to Instagram or Facebook? Like, what was your preference to look at?
Like, which one would I rather use?
Yeah, so now we're both old enough to remember. I actually enjoyed Facebook at a certain time when people would post what they had for supper, stuff their cats were up to, when it wasn't news articles. I actually enjoyed Facebook at that time.
Yeah,
And there was a time when I did get some enjoyment out of Instagram, just looking through different photos and stuff like that too.
I'm laughing because like I've like manufactured my Facebook to stay in that time, Nick.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, like I don't have very many like Facebook friend stuff, but like a lot of family friends. Like if I won't talk to you in the grocery store, I'm not, why would I have you as a Facebook friends? Um,
To
so
share chasing yesterday's posts.
maybe yeah, just taking the wrong networking approach entirely. But I do stick like with the family stuff, right? So when my cousin posts their kids playing hockey, instant like, right?
Yeah.
um, and stuff like that, and I ignore 99% of the news stuff with it. Instagram I generally loathe in general, so it's, yeah, I don't like using it. I don't like how it operates. I don't like how like mindless it is. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the functionality of it and how it's so picky about everything you send to it. Like I can't just Facebook, I can give it anything. Twitter, doesn't matter what my media is, what its size is, just throw it on there. It'll do it. It's got it. Instagram's like, no, you have to conform to our ways. And I don't have time for that. Instagram bugs me. Um,
There's a setting that it literally Instagram export for Instagram. Click.
yeah, I don't have time for it. It's not this,
I don't
it's not
have.
the same size as my sensor size. Whenever I do, like, yeah, it just bugs me. Um, but yeah, like I don't know. Keeley kind of looked at this stuff and said it would be like a good thing
Mm-hmm.
to operate in this way. He kind of convinced me. I'm kind of leaning on that side and not relying so much on hashtags and
Oh, I see what you're saying here. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm not too sure uh, what I think about that or how I feel about that. I'm honestly, I probably just wait to see how it plays out.
Um. So they're saying that it's going to focus a little bit less on who you're following and more on what they think you should be following. Is that kind of the way it's going then?
Yeah, again, like focusing on that algorithm specifically and how it works and how it delivers. So in other words, uh, you know how you kind of talked about like Leroy and Leroy, how they'll like try it out on people, and if it gets
Mm-hmm.
popular, then it'll really take off.
Yeah.
I think that's how he imagines this changing, and I kind of think he's right.
Yeah. Um, so this is they're starting to remember. Was it us was talking about the idea of the infinite video and not sure where it starts or where it ends, kind of thing. So it'll keep looping and looping and looping.
Yeah,
I read an article that they're basically trying to crack down on that. They're trying to weed out those looping videos that are kind of hacking the system. Like they're not really content that people would watch.
yeah, they're absolute
It's just
trash.
like a
They're the
trick.
trash of the internet.
Yeah. So apparently they're trying to fix that. So our idea is out the window.
Yeah. Um, the other thing too, just with this, if Instagram is now a video platform, um, what is now the photographer's platform?
um 500px.
Is that even still going?
I don't think it is. So what was the photographer site where you'd go on and it would upgrade your rank over time? Was what was that one called?
Your rank.
Yeah, so you'd get a ranking, and then as you'd enter competitions, so you'd submit your photo to these competitions, and then if you'd won a competition, it would increase your rank and you'd get rankings. It was really cool, but apparently they've abandoned that site. I wish it would make more sense if I could remember the name of it.
Yeah, I'm not. I feel like that's before my time, Nick.
Well, yeah, it probably would have been no, not too long ago, 5 or 6 years ago. It was kind of popular, but it was really cool. It was a fun photographer site, but then it kind of got ruined because instead of people started hacking the system, right? So instead of submit your photos, it became they'd be spamming it with 8 billion photos, or else they would be kind of bot voting their photo to get to the top, and it kind of lost its purpose of it.
Hmm,
It was basically like the hot or not of photos.
that's kind of interesting. But yeah, it does feel like photographers need like their own platform now.
You know what would be great to bring back? We need to write this down. Um, it's the modern hot or not or Tinder photos where you go on and you just swipe
Swipe
whichever
photos.
way, swiping your photos, but it's like legit art photos,
Yeah,
or photographers. That would be really cool, actually.
that
I'm
would
sure
be
it exists,
interesting.
but
Here's another question that I don't know the answer to. I actually don't expect you to know the answer to, Nick. But if we don't get a new platform, then what's the option? Is it just photographers have to become video people now?
oh, so I know you said I don't need to know the answer, but I feel like I know half of the answer to this. So I'm gonna the start is I'm gonna pretend that there's no new platform, which it's not true. There's going to become a new platform for photographers, but the photographers that are making it or really rising to the top of the Instagram algorithm are shooting videos about taking their photo. Now, I feel like half of them, the photos kind of suck at the end. Like they're showing this elaborate setup, and then they show the picture at the end, and it's like,
Yeah, the videos more than
I could, I feel bad that I gave my time and attention to that video, which will do pretty good in the algorithm when the end product sucked.
yeah.
So I don't know how to get around that. But there's other ones where the street photographers where they'll go in and they'll show them introducing themselves to the stranger, setting the stranger up, posing them, and they get a really nice photo. I like those ones. I think those are great.
But then that means like someone else is shooting it for them. So then you have to be like a big
Yes,
business. You
I
can't you,
didn't
you
even
can't
think of
do it
that.
on your own, right? Like I don't know. It kind of sucks. I follow a guy on YouTube, Thomas Heaton, and he does they're landscape photography things, but he goes out and he tells his little story. And frankly, like 90% of what he says kind of bores me, but I kind of really like his photography. So I stick along and watch. And
Mm-hmm.
generally he does have some like good advice in almost every single episode. But yeah, it's like I feel like he puts more effort and time into his video than he does his actual photos. So like he'll do a 20-minute long video, he'll show 3 photos in it, and it's like I'm trying to gauge in my head like where he's put his time and effort, and is he a photographer or is he a videographer?
Yeah. Do you remember the time when there was a difference?
Yeah, there really was like it. Well, you couldn't do the same things. And
Um, there was a time when you would need the video person to shoot the video and the photographer to shoot the photo. I feel like most people can do both now.
yeah, although actually
There's
maybe for another day, I have another rant about that.
about why you shouldn't or why you should.
It just about the idea of most people can do both now. I'm not convinced of that.
Well, there's different degrees. And from my own side, I would, if there was a legit photographer, I wouldn't be able to come up with photos on the same level as them. But
Yeah,
at the same time, I'd feel fairly confident that I'd be able to produce a
yeah.
better video than they could.
It comes with some ease, right? Especially if you're doing both tasks at the same time. Your advertisements for the Leroy and Leroy shirts. Sorry, who shot that?
That was me.
Yeah. So you're doing the videos, you're doing the
Yeah,
photos
but
for the commercials.
half of them are uh, the other guy just takes them on his iPhone. Half of the photos are iPhone taken. Half of them are taken on
Which is a
my.
whole other conversation next week,
Yeah.
folks. How we don't even need photographers or videographers anymore. We don't need cameras. We just need iPhone.
Although there's a certain amount of realism to it that
Yeah,
looks a little bit more real, and yeah,
it,
yeah. Well, I'll save it for next week.
they handle certain situations better. I'll say that.
Yeah,
Um,
I've got a prime. I'll save it for next week. It's a good story.
Speaking of which, too, I want to give you guys kudos for just using, actually the people in your daily lives for your t-shirt ads and stuff like that. The photos come off as real; they come off as genuine. We started off talking about being body positive, and I just really like that was those shirts and the people in them and the backgrounds. It was just Saskatchewan, and I know it was probably super easy for you to do. It looked like it was done in your backyard, but
Yeah.
it was still like one of those things like good for them not trying to get things out of hand. It's because that's not what matters. It's the shirt that matters.
Thanks.
um, One other thing I want to bring up before we leave, Johnny Keeley was the name of the guy. I was trying to look him up on Instagram. So yeah, if you want to follow him, his photography stuff's great. His YouTube videos he does too, you just he's a very calm, he's not very entertaining, he's very calm, delivers very
He's
well. But
poor guys. Watch.
do you know
Just
what? The dude is spot on.
backhanded compliments.
Yeah, I would watch him any day. I love what he does. I respect what he does a lot. So, just don't expect Peter McKinnon. That's all I'm saying.
There's not many, and the guys that try to be him, unless that's their personality, it just never works.
Correct. Not everybody can just go, "What's up?"
Yeah.
That was terrible. And we should cut that part out. Anyways, Nick,
Probably have to pay a royalty.
I'm gonna have to beep it out anyways, right? Just edit that part out because Peter McKinnon
Get
owns it.
flagged.
Can you say that? That's his other thing, fly to flag. I don't think you can say flag, Nick. Cool. I think that's good enough for this
Right
episode.
on.
Actually, I think this was not a bad little mini episode with us, Nick.
No, it was good. It was. You know what helps? The run sheet.
The run sheet helped. Taking notes, kids. We wrote stuff down. It worked like a charm. It was amazing.
Yeah, we had our points and stuck to them, kind of.
Yeah, kind of loosely, very loosely. We went off. We derailed a few times.
Awesome.
We'll let the fine folks guess where we actually derailed.
Yeah. Oh, good talking with you, Emery.
Yes, you too, Nick. I guess we can just leave her at that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, have a good one.
We'll see you later. You ready? It's just.
Yep.
I love how you use an actual hockey water bottle. Welcome to Just Two Camera Guys. Why do I start with the intro?
You love it.
My hand didn't actually hit the frame. Put it up. I need to put it way back up here.
I don't know. I hope this guy sees this talk about the lens. I wonder if it'll help him.
I think so.
Like
yeah, really, I don't answer the question for 3 weeks, and I just send him a link to the video and it comes out. I even did once. I got a buddy in Edmonton to pick up this 16-35.
Yeah,
because it was for sale in Edmonton. He went to the guy's house for me, threw it on his camera. It worked great. Yeah. Shipped it to me.
Like I gave it like the look, and then like a day later, the look, and then like a day later. But I didn't actually pull the trigger. And
yeah, I don't think you can buy any lenses anymore. You gotta save every penny for your daughter's education. You know what? You're right about the mills, because I remember being paranoid when I went from full frame to Super 35. Like, oh, I won't be able to get this wide. I'll miss this wide. I've never once missed the wide. It's fine.
Yeah, or you just move, right? Although I would say you probably need a good telephoto before you need that super one. The other lens I really want to get is a tilt shift.
It's like, yeah, it's like bubblegum's fun to chew every once in a while, but like, your which camera are you on?
Do you know what? I don't even know yet. I keep assuming I'm on the End Zone camera.
The guy just texted me back saying, actually, Tamaron's getting better reviews.
Really cheap-ass people buy cheap-ass gear, and they get it, and they're like, oh, this works, and give it a 5-star review.
Yeah.
And they don't compare it. They don't know anything else that's out there. Yeah, I think I might try to get this out before Adrian's second one.
Yeah, that would actually be a good buffer, I think, between the two.